Drama is one word. Pandemonium is another way I could describe what has unfolded here at the Wakangela Mankeng and the Royal Palace. Touch and go situation can tell you that. You can see the emotion on everybody's face that this could have become deadly. Once again, we're left with question marks about the future of the Zulu throne.
I am hopeful that lomtwana MisuZulu-Zulu will accept this honor and duty with buoyancy.
This is the dawn of a new era.
I believe that lomtwana MisuZulu-Zulu suitable to assume the position of the Zulu monarch.
I never knew I was going to be king.
The end of May now, so it's about 2.5, 3 weeks later. I get a call from one of the princes, one of the late king's brothers. We would like you to speak to the king. And he was one of those who was already at the time referring to MisuZulu as king. So he says, are you interested? I'm like, of course I'm interested. What is the dynamic? What is going to be permissible? You know, those are the nitty-gritty details that you sort of have to pin down before you plan a production. I think we left a couple of days after that phone call, about 2 days later. Get to KZN, and I was also hesitant because of how they were doing things. So they weren't being forthcoming with the venue for this interview. They weren't being forthcoming with the time. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's a security concern, okay? And when we get there, there's the vehicle that is very familiar to me, ZK, which is the vehicle only the Zulu King would be ferried in. We get to where the king is. So now we're running around, we're setting up, we are now waiting for our other colleagues more to bring us something for us to go live with. Then we get told, yeah, you won't talk about the late king, you won't talk about the will, you won't talk about this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, that's my entire interview gone. I'm like, oh, whoa, this is very tough because those are all the questions that I want to ask, over and above wanting to get to know him. But I mean, we want to know what is going through his mind when the will is being read. We want to know that grand entrance, you know. And then they tell us that instead of the hour that you were promised, you're going to only have him for 15 minutes. All right, Stephen Curtis, I've got you.
So you're right. All right.
We're taking it live.
Our senior political reporter, Ziyanda Ngobo, now in conversation with the new Zulu King, Misuzulu Zwelithini. Ziyanda, good afternoon.
A very good afternoon to you, Stephen. Well, we're here in KwaMkhuze in KwaZulu-Natal, and as you've aptly put it, we are in conversation with King Misuzulu Zwelithini. I started off, obviously, with the stuff about him, who he is, what his vision is. Did you always know that you were going to be the king?
You know, coming from a polygamous background, you can never be sure of anything. To even try to even suspect that you might be king, or you might be senior prince, or you might be a senior in the family is very difficult, because the family is very big. It consists out of 12 houses of Zulu, which, picking of a king is a very difficult process.
But you arrived at your mother's memorial flanked by Amaboto. That sent a strong message, because it was in that moment then when there was a sense that you were actually announcing, I am the rightful person to sit on the throne.
On that day, arrival, it just happened automatically. I think the Zulus were already hungry for a king. They were hungry for a leader. If you remember, once again, all of this was happening. This was my mother's memorial.
Yes.
So even the warriors, while they were there, they felt the pain that I was going through. Having lost my father, now it's the queen. And through that comfort and support, that's why what happened. I did not plan it.
Okay. I just got a sense that this is somebody who is still trying to grapple with the passing away of his parents. Firstly, the will is being read out publicly.
Yeah.
Was that a deliberate decision? Were you aware that the entire nation would be privy to the reading of your mother's will?
Just to mention, my father's one was done privately, and we said this one, let us do public, just to also send a message publicly so that everyone is on a clear picture on what's happening and what's going on. And I did not know that night that my name was going to be read on that will.
Princess Magate is the person who your aunts and uncles are putting forward as the rightful heir to the throne. How does that make you feel? Have you spoken to Prince Magate?
We have spoken a couple times since the death of my father, and also we spoke at the time of the death of the queen. But I didn't know when we spoke that he would be a so-called contender. But for me personally, Mangobo, just to answer a question that I think a lot of people are asking in their heads, I don't have a problem with the will. I respect his word, even when he's no longer with us. But everything, I don't believe the signatures are fake, but these are court matters.
Yes.
I don't like to go into detail with them, but just out of respect for the Zulu people, myself, the throne, and the rest of the family, I don't dispute anything my father has put on the table for the rest of the family insofar as the will.
What is happening in the AmaZulu royal household has an implication for the AmaZulu nation. How do you plan to deal with this?
I do believe that all of this will be over one day, and everybody will come back home, and we will sit down as a family. I believe it's a matter that the family needs to sit down and solve, because at the end of the day, we can't have two kings. We have to have one.
Mayete, thank you so much for your time. We hope that we'll have. And I think he was also somebody who was sort of saying to the AmaZulu nation, like, please give me time, like, just give me time and space just to adjust and like wrap my head around things, but I am willing to serve as your king. Argument really ultimately boiled down to civil law versus customary law, because at some stage the first wife's lawyers tried to adjust their initial application to say, well, actually we need to have the other 5 marriages of the late king declared null and void in order then for her to be able to say she's entitled to half of his estate. So 2022 comes, I still follow the developments of the royal household, where arguments are going to be made by the lawyers about primarily 2 things. It's the civil marriage that the king's first wife, Queen Sibongile Dlamini Zulu, entered into in terms of a community of property. Then the second was going to deal with the validity and the legitimacy of the will.
The African Queen seeks a declaration that she is entitled to a 50% share of the joint estate.
And Judge Madondo is asking, You want us to deal with you being married to the king according to civil marriage. You are what they call umfazi wephepha. What then should be said about the other 5 wives?
Fortunately, the law is clear. The first wife is entitled to 50% of the joint estate. What becomes a bit of a problem is when you also have a look at the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act. It says that the husband and the wife that are in a customary marriage also jointly own the estate.
Then they tried to amend their application to say that they want the court to officially declare, because they didn't ask for a declaratory order, to declare the other wives' marriages, according to customary law, invalid. Which of course now means you are basically not recognizing your sister wives.
Court said, look, we do not necessarily have to deal with this issue. There is no life dispute between you as the first wife, and you even say it in your papers that your intention is not necessarily to challenge marriages that came after yours of the 5 other wives.
The judge also found that the application wasn't specific enough because the king's estate is split up in 5. There's some, part of it is iNgonyama trust, some of it his cattle, and so his estate is split up differently. So the judge, I remember at the time asking to say, but also which part of the estate are you making, claim to? Because not all of it belonged to the king in his personal capacity. Some of it he was the custodian on behalf of the royal family or the AmaZulu nation.
And when you have a look at the Marriages Act, it's community of property, 50-50. We know your 50% shouldn't be affected by what the will says. And if it does, maybe you will come, but we are not there yet.
The applicants in this application are the daughters of the late Isilo of Lomtwana Royal Palace. They challenge the authenticity and validity of the will of the late Isilo on the grounds that the signatures appended thereto in various places are not that of the late Isilo.
The 2 daughters of Queen Sibongile Dlamini Zulu claiming that they believe that the will has been forged.
A handwriting expert, Mr. Yossi Vasoki, who has over 40 years experience within signature analysis.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what he said after the analysis. He said the only consistency in this will is the inconsistency of my father's signatures.
Over and above, suspicions of the signature being forged, there is an issue about removal of an ID number, one of the beneficiaries. That was scratched out and it was replaced by a different number, and that amendment was not signed by 2 or more witnesses.
Even the first wife and her daughters, all in their affidavits, even in their oral hearings, continuously said that their applications have got no bearing or have got nothing to do with the succession to the throne. There was a bit of a back and forth to say, how can you say that? Because if you're questioning the validity of the will, then you're questioning Queen Manfombi being placed as the regent, and then by implication her will appointing MisuZulu as the king, then there's a ripple effect there.
According to court, based on the information that it was given, the boxes were ticked in terms of customary law. They were not challenged, not by the first wife, not by the princesses, at least insofar as coronation is concerned. The only issue is the validity of the will. That's the only issue that court, said, yes, this one, I think let's deal with it. I'm going to give you, 15 days or so to launch a case in respect of this one.
However, even if at the end of the day, the will of the king would be declared as invalid, or that is not the true reflection of the intentions of the king, it has no bearing on the manner in which the King Misuzulu would have been installed.
Because what Judge Mjabliseni Madondo was saying was that, well, this is a family matter. The family has made a determination, and if there was an issue with MisuZulu being the right heir to the throne, that is a separate court application altogether. That is not what I have been called.
And the result, the application is dismissed with costs, such costs to include the costs of 2 council, and this concludes the 3 applications.
So in other words, that judgment paved the way for the coronation, for all the other processes which have now subsequently taken place. Every time there was a court appearance, the king's siblings would be in attendance, and you could see them visibly exhilarated and relieved as well with the outcomes of that court judgment, because that also meant that the ball was now on President Cyril Ramaphosa's court to issue a certificate of recognition.
Essentially, there hasn't been many cases where wills have been successfully revoked, you know, on the basis of signatures. I mean, you would have to advance a lot of evidence, perhaps even witnesses that were, you know, part of the process. But, you know, things might tend the other way also.
King Misuzulu Zwelithini has logged another victory after the High Court in Pietermaritzburg dismissed a fresh attempt to scupper his coronation.
iNgonyama ebazalayo yabekwa kungafanele kungana abantu abayo bonke balwe lesihlalo sayo bangavumi sime emva kwayo kodwa khona abantu abayingancane bengamanzi.
Things always have take a dramatic turn with this story. I really need to emphasize that.
King Misuzulu. That's what it is.
We chose the name of Buzabas Zwelithini.
Akusiwona lo kade bethi abanye awu ngabe lomhlangano ukubeka inkosi, cha inkosi ikhona.
AmaZulu know exactly that a king is not chosen, but a king is born.
So President Cyril Ramaphosa has wished MisuZulu-Zulu a long and prosperous reign as the next AmaZulu king. And that's after he officially recognized him, saying MisuZulu's ascension to the throne is a moment of distinguished history for the Zulu nation.
Inkosi ethombele ehlathini amanye yamakhosi ethombele endlini ekhipha inkomo zehla ngoholoko ibhekwa mshanyelo bayikwagija umqolo bani ezala amaqayeni obikela umzweni kwamanzi ibheshu esesasayiwa blonda mngexakazi.
Family members who are inside the eNgonyama royal palace are going ahead with that particular ceremony, which is, of course, the entering of the crawl, despite, of course, having seen that statement from the Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation.
Kube buhlungu kakhulu ukuhamba kweNgonyama. Washiya nemibuzo eminingi. iNgonyama ivalelwe endaweni eyayivalelwe kuyo. Icindezelekile iNdlunkulu. Ayangakwazi ukuyikhombisa ukuhlakanipha kwayo phezu kwesizwe ngoba ipolitiki ifike yakuthatha konke. Akupheleni ukudideka kithi Zulu. Ke sibuyise ubungcwele kithi. Sikubuyise okuhle sahlonishwa ngakho umhlaba.
A very heartfelt, one might say, speech from Prince Magadi.
Can I correct the part of Princess Magadi? King's Magadi, Zwelithini. That's what it is, because the royal family has fulfilled all the responsibilities from the rituals till the last one that we did yesterday. So we have King's Magadi as the royal family.
However, being the eldest child does not mean that you are the heir to the throne, because there are customs, traditions, and there is indigenous knowledge that is known by samaZulu.
We are here to clarify some of the things that has happened in the past weekend. We want to put the record straight that those rituals or anything that has happened was not done by people responsible to do such things.
Samsana asikimizi ngoba nalokho sakuzwa sekwenzekile.
So to take one of the king's son to the throne without their fathers, it doesn't give him blessing.
I just need to emphasize that these three are the most important members of the royal family.
That is why today we have given the name
of Vuzabazi kaZwelithini.
We've got reasons, because we look at all of them equally, and then we select, because he is the one that has been with the king, working very closely. He groomed him for more than 20 years. He knows everything. The aim is not to divide the Zulu nation, the Zulu royal family. Our aim is to bring us together, because the preferred one has to be agreed upon by the whole family. But as the ruling family, we have identified him.
samaZulu know exactly that a king is not chosen, but a king is born.
Good morning to you. People are starting to stream into the venue, but security quite tight. People have traveled far and wide, but as the sun comes out and as the day really starts to break, we are going to let out our jackets, because today it's celebration.
I think only the Gogos and the Mkhulus will know or remember when, King Zwelithini was coronated. Even with his coronation, it wasn't without drama.
So it's all systems go insofar as the traditional coronation of Misuzulu Zwelithini. The King Misuzulu Zwelithini will be entering the kraal, and when he emerges, he will be wearing and covered and draped in that lion's skin, the lion that he hunted.
The king is introduced to the ancestors of the nation, informing them officially through rituals that his father, the late king, is no more. He is now taking the nation forward.
He emerges, and you can tell that something changed. The evidence of all of that was just the mood around.
Ngiphakamise futhi ngokukhulu ukuzithoba umnkankosi Dlukulu kaMafu. Ngiyathokoza mama wami, uwena wedwa omama bami okhona namhlanje. Ngizimisele njengeNgonyama kaZulu ukuhola isizwe sikaMageba, isizwe sikababa. Ngiyazi ukuthi ngokwazi kwenu ukuthi isimo saseNdlunkulu sinjani kulezi insuku. Sengike ngasho futhi kaningana ukuthi nibezwe ukuthi bathini, ngoba kumele sibezwe ukuthi bathini, kodwa ningabalaleli. Akusekho kubuye kushintshe manje. Isiphume esiphumile, ayikwazi futhi ukuphuma zibe mbili noma zibe ntathu. Siphuma sibe sinye. Yabezithi nina bendlovu ngithokoza kakhulu uthando lwami enginalo esizweni sikababa. Ngithokoza kakhulu benilokhu nihamba nami kunzima kunjalo.
That was a very powerful speech from the king when he said he's waiting for his brothers, for everyone at home, because this is home. Everyone is welcomed and they all have their seats. So that was bringing hope to the nation.
Ultimately, when you look at this journey, I think some who really monitor the history of the Zulu nation closely, they have actually said that it's quite fortunate that, yes, these divisions have played out publicly, and yes, it hasn't been the smoothest ride. But if you look at how ascensions to the throne have taken place previously and historically, we should be grateful that no blood has been shed this time around.
Indeed, dust will settle and there will be unity in the royal family, which will also be transferred to the entire nation to be united and move forward.
You know, you have a responsibility to remain the custodian of our culture, of our heritage, and ultimately our identity.
Everyone knows amongst AmaZulu that a king is born. And the king is not for the royal family only. The king is for the entire nation.
Indeed, we are protected by the shield of our identity, for which our kings and ancestors proudly waged war. The Zulu nation is still here. We're walking through the valley of grief, yet still we stand.